Hi, welcome back. In today's session, we are going to read only one scene, but it's a powerful one. We're going to finish up Act 1 by reading Act 1, Scene 7. Before I begin, I want to talk to you about some of the things that have happened in the preceding scenes, especially some themes that we have seen already begin to develop. The most primary one, I think, at this point is the idea that appearances can be deceiving. And this comes out right in Act 1, Scene 1, when the witches say, "Fair is foul and foul is fair." Now, what that line really means is that good is bad and bad is good. And it brings us out to the idea that it's going to be very difficult to discern good from evil in this play. What looks like it's good might not be, and what looks like it's evil might actually be good. This idea of appearance and reality of appearances being very deceiving takes a turn a little later in Act 1, after Lady Macbeth learns of the prophecies from the witches. She's excited about the prospect of her husband becoming king, but she also is a little bit unsure that he's going to be able to do it, because she says he's too full of the milk of human kindness. When her husband comes in, she tells him that his face is as a book where men may read strange matters. She means, I can tell right what you're thinking by the way your face looks. She says, to beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye. Later, she advises him, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. So she advises him to look like he is sweet and innocent, but to actually be cutthroat and mean on the inside. This is something her husband has a hard time with, because he really is a man of integrity at the beginning of this play. She, however, doesn't seem to have much of a problem with it, because in the very next scene, she welcomes the unsuspecting King Duncan into her castle, and she acts like she's so happy to see him and just so honored with his presence there, even though we know she's plotting his demise. Also, with this idea of appearance versus reality and hiding what you really are on the inside, we've got a couple quotes so far that have to do with stars hiding fires. Macbeth is going through an internal conflict. When he first heard the prophecy, he basically was thinking that it wasn't even possible, but he shocked himself by having an initial thought of murdering his king. He was appalled at himself for even thinking it and chastised himself. At that point, he had decided, if chance will have me king, chance will crown me without my stir, implying that he believes that if he is intended to be king, he's going to leave it in the hands of fate. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And if not, it won't. However, moments later, when he meets with the king, and the king announces to everybody that he has declared Malcolm, his eldest son, his successor, Macbeth says in an aside, that is a step on which I must or leap or fall over, for in my way it lies. He then says, stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. So he wants the stars to turn the lights off, so nobody will be able to see what's really going on in his black heart, which clearly is another thought of murdering the king. Now, as I said before, Macbeth is fluctuating in these early scenes. He seems to want to do it, and then he pulls himself back and says, no, we can't do that. When, even though in that moment it seemed like he was ready to murder, by the time he reached his wife, she's all set to go with the plan, and he is like uncomfortable talking about it. He doesn't really want to talk about it. He's really struggling with this. And I think he's struggling with it because really, and this is something we can never forget, at the beginning of this play, he's a good man. He takes his role and his obligations as a Thane very seriously. His job is to protect the king. And we see how well he did that when we heard the news of his brave battle with Macdonald. Now, Macbeth is not a coward. He's a brave man, but there's a difference between killing someone in battle and cold-blooded murder. And cold-blooded murder is exactly what he is thinking about in the beginning of scene 7. I just want to remind you of one more thing. At the end of, or midway towards the end of scene 6, the previous scene, Duncan is making conversation with Lady Macbeth, and he says, where is our Thane? Where's Where's Macbeth? We were following close behind him, but his love for you, sharp as his spur, helped him to get here before us. So Duncan referred to Macbeth's love for his wife as a spur which made him do things. Keep that in mind as we read this. When scene 7 opens up, the curtain opens and we see several actors rushing back and forth with trays of food and drink. So we understand that there is a banquet going on, but it's not in front of us, it's off stage in another room. Macbeth enters the stage, so we know he's left the party. And he gives what is known as a soliloquy in Shakespeare. A soliloquy is a speech that an author gives when he's alone on the stage. And the speech really will tell the audience what he's thinking. And Macbeth is really struggling right here. I like to call this the to kill or not to kill speech because that's what he's thinking about. He is weighing the pros and cons of murdering his king. He begins by saying, "If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, that but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here, but here upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come." So let me go back and explain what happened there. He began by saying, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If we could get it done and I could do it quickly, that would be one thing, if it could just be done. And then he says, if the assassination or the murder could trammel up the consequence and catch with its surcease success. He means if I knew that the murder would, number one, be successful and get me what I want, and number two, I wouldn't get caught and there wouldn't be a consequence, then I'd do it, he says. He would jump the life to come. Now, what he means by that wording is he would forfeit eternal life. He believes that there is a life after death, and if you live a good life, you will go to heaven. And he says, I'd give it up if I knew it would work. But then he's got that all-important word, but. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which, being taught, return to plague the inventor. That's an interesting idea. He says, if I teach bloody instructions, if I teach people that it's okay to kill the king to become king, then what's to stop somebody from doing that to me? It could come back and plague me. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. He said, it would be like I was trying to poison somebody with a chalice and I swallowed it myself. I would be causing my own fate, my own death. This is what we call what goes around comes around reasoning. If I do it, it could come back, and the same thing that I did could come back to me. He's not wrong. He then switches gears, though, and goes into another direction. He's here in double trust. We can assume the he's talking about is Duncan. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed, and then as his host, who should against the murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. He reasons that he is the king's thane, and he takes this role very seriously. He's supposed to protect the king. And also, he's his host. This man is a guest in his home. You're supposed to protect your guests, not actually kill them. So there's another reason why he shouldn't do it. And then he comes up with a third one. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead, like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity, like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sights of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. So his final reason why he thinks he shouldn't do this is simply the fact that Duncan has been a good king. He can't even justify killing him by saying the man is a terrible king. He's doing a terrible job. And he knows that Duncan is so full of virtue that he has the support of the people, and the people are going to rebel if he's killed. For all of these reasons, what goes around comes around. His responsibilities as a thane to protect his king, And the fact that Duncan really hasn't done anything wrong seemed to lead him to one inevitable conclusion, that he should not kill the king. In fact, he says at the end, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition. I have nothing to make me do this. I just want it. He just has ambition. Well, enter the spur, his wife. He says, how now? What news? And she says, he hath almost supped. Why have you left the chamber? She chastises him for leaving the party. And Macbeth says, hath he asked for me? Know you not he has? She says. Now, at this point, Macbeth has gone through his soliloquy. He's listed all of his reasoning. He's decided he's not going to do it. He doesn't have enough reason to do this. And so he tells his wife, we will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss and not cast aside so soon. He says, I'm not going to do this, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. He's honored me, and I'm going to just enjoy the honors he's given me. But she says to him, was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time such I account thy love. She tells him, well, what beast was it then that brought this idea up? And now you've changed your mind? You seem to be kind of fickle. Is that kind of how you feel about your love for me? You're going to love me one minute and not the next, because apparently you can't stay with anything for very long. She then says this, art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which wouldst thou esteem the ornaments of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage? Well, if you were thinking that maybe she just challenged his manhood and called him a wimp, you're absolutely right. That is what she did. She implied that he does not have the courage to take what he really wants, and that he should. Macbeth says, prithee peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none. He says, I dare do everything that a good man should do. And people who dare do more, they're not really men. But she says this, what a beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves that their fitness does now unmake you. Basically, she told him in that thing, when you dared to do it, then you were a man to me. And if you were more than that, if he was the king, you would be even more than a man. I really think she's implying there that she would love him even more if he did this. If he did this for her, and if he was even more powerful, she could love him even more than she does now. Well, if you think that's bad, what do you see what's coming next? I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from its boneless gums and dashed its brains out, had I so sworn as you've done to this. Well, back in this time period, of course, women lost babies frequently. And Lady Macbeth does not apparently have a child at this time, but she did have a baby at one point. We can assume the baby died, or we're not sure what happened in this book. It's unclear. But she says, I know how tender it is to give birth to a baby and have that baby nurse off me. But if I told you I would do that, I would dash that baby right off my breast and dash its brains out, because that's how much I love you, honey. And you can't even kill a little king for me. Now, most men, I would think, would be a little concerned if they had this conversation with their wives. Surely she implies that she loves Macbeth more than anything, including more than any child she could possibly have. And if she promised him something, if he wanted it, if he needed it, she would do anything for him, including killing her own child for him. Like I said, most men would be a little concerned to hear that. But Macbeth, he seems to admire her, because he says, if we should fail, She's got him and she knows it. We fail? Screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. When Duncan is asleep, where to the rather shall his day's hard journeys soundly invite him? His two chamberlains will I, with wine and wassail, so convinced that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell? Oh, she's got the plan all set, and as soon as she knows she's got him on the edge, she pushes him over. She says, we're not going to fail. Just screw your courage to the sticking place, and this is going to work. Her plan is this. The chamberlains were the guards that stood outside the king's bedchamber. They stood there and they guarded the king while he slept. The plan is, she says she will with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. She's going to get them drunk. And once they're drunk and passed out, she says, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? We could do anything we want when they're down. Now Macbeth, she's really got him because he adds to the plan and says this. Well, first of all, she has definitely sparked his admiration because he has this line first. Bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted mettle should compose nothing but males. So sorry about that, girls. He says to his wife, basically, you should only have sons because, bravery and courage like you have, don't even waste your time on girl children. Just have boys, he seems to imply here. He says, will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber and used their very daggers that they have done it? From this, he says, he adds to the plan saying, we'll use their daggers, we'll use their weapons, and then we'll wipe blood all over them when we're done, and it'll look like they did it instead of us. Lady Macbeth says, who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamor roar upon his death? She says, nobody will believe anything different because we will make such a fuss when they discover his body, no one will suspect us. And Macbeth has the final say. He says, I am settled and bent up, each corporal agent to this terrible feat. I am settled and bent up. He's determined to do it. He's going to exert all the power in his body to get this done. And then he has this interesting line at the end. Away and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. Let's away and mock the time with fairest show. Let's go back into that party and act like we are what we are not. Pretend we are innocent and kind and welcoming and good. And then he says, false face must hide what the false heart doth know. I have to make my face look one way so people don't see what's really in my heart. So we see this act ends also on the idea that, people can look one way. They can appear to be one thing, but they can be something very different. Of course, we know that Shakespeare has already drawn for us a character in Duncan that is very gullible. Duncan put all of his confidence in the former Thane of Cawdor, who betrayed him. And then he dumped all of his confidence into Macbeth, who we know is thinking of killing him. He seems to be not the greatest judge of character. And so that actually heightens the tension because we have a trusting, naive, gullible king and a man who has been convinced by his wife to look one way, but actually be something totally different on the inside. So Act 1 ends with a murder imminent. Thanks for coming. I'll see you next time.